Hello, good evening and welcome. Ministers of Roads and Infrastructure, Works and Justice from Nigeria, Benin, Togo, Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire have been in a 5-member state meeting to see how best they could move the sub-region forward. One of the outcomes of the meeting was that the 5-member states of ECOWAS have decided to construct a 1,025-kilometer stretch of road by next year. There is no denying that this will aid trade activities in the sub-region and bring us closer. What I want to know is, will it be feasible, and why are we so behind in other things we have left untouched? Who else to give answers by the Executive Director of Transport and Telecommunication for ECOWAS, Mr. David L.B. Kamara, and Ghana's own Deputy Minister for Roads and Highways, Isaac J. Mensah. My name is Nana Ansakwa, and this is PM Express. Right after the break, we are going to talk. Hello and welcome back. Today the discussion is bridging the sub-regional gap. Since 1975, I think May 28th, if I'm correct, when the ECOWAS community of 15 member states came together and decided, look, let us join hands, make our economy bigger, integrate more, so we become a force to be reckoned in the world. Today we are discussing bridging the sub-regional gap, i.e. the construction of a 1,025-kilometer road across the West African region so that movement is free and hopefully borders will not be there so we can trade better. With me in the studio from my extreme left, I'll introduce again is Mr. David L.B. Kamara, Director, Transport and Telecommunication for ECOWAS. David, welcome. And then immediately to my left is Isaac J. Mensah, Deputy Minister for Roads and Highways for our dear country, Ghana. Isaac, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. First of all, we need to clarify this. They said the road is going to be completed in 5 months. David, I don't know if you want to clarify that for me before I even go into my interview.
Well, that is not true.
Oh, okay.
We wish we can complete it in 5 months. But, as well as I do, that it involves a lot of preparatory work. And even when that is completed, the construction process itself will take more than 5 months.
So let's put that aside.
Yes.
Let's put that aside.
Yeah.
And I'll stay with you, David. Is it going to be one of those projects that is going to be all neatly done and then packed away and shelved?
Definitely not. Nobody can spend money in developing such an asset and just leave it like that. Road construction is very capital intensive, and whenever it is done, we make sure that it serves its purpose and for the foreseeable future.
Capital intensive, Isaac, let me come to you. Now, we as a nation are struggling with our own roads as it is. Now, ECOWAS is saying, well, let's build a 1,025-kilometer road to help us. By all accounts, it's good, but shouldn't we build our road to some extent before we're embarking on this 1,000-kilometer road to, help others?
You're right. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Mm-hmm. And indeed, there is no good time other than today to talk about this. Mm-hmm. Now, as we speak today, just a bit of synopsis. Mm-hmm. We have the expert meeting today to define the legal, the technical, and the financial framework for this project. Ghana has its own bit on road construction. The most important aspect of this project, and I'm so happy that we have this project going on, is that about 50% of this road falls in our country. So it's a good one. We already have a road that links Abidjan to Lagos, but we want to improve upon that. This time round, a 6-lane. We have a single lane, currently ongoing. So that is the base. But we also have our challenges with our roads as well. We have our trunk roads and so on and so forth. But this is to enhance the inner and also the supra, international roads going forward.
David, you see, all throughout history, you realize that a migration of people goes somewhere and then they help that community in terms of they bring some business there and then it booms, it booms. So I'm not being xenophobia, but are we over-relying on the Chinese? Should we at least do something so they come and do 10%? But it seems as if they're doing 90% and then we are doing the 10%. One day, we'll end up owing them too much.
I don't know if you mean by that their involvement in infrastructure development.
Infrastructure development, and particularly this road, it says that the construction is going to be by the Chinese.
No.
No.
That is not yet been determined.
And that's very reassuring.
If you can recall what the minister said, right now we are meeting as experts to decide to first of all look at the technical issues as well as the legal and financial implications. So if the Chinese, of course, if they say they are doing it for us free, if we are going to rely on them 100%.
China signed an agreement on infrastructure development and economic cooperation and the economic in ECOWAS, basically, when the meeting. Was it for this particular road?
We did. It was not for this particular road.
Okay.
But if they can use part of what they have earmarked for ECOWAS as far as infrastructure development is concerned, if they can use part of that for this road, definitely this is one of our priority roads, and we'll definitely invite them when it comes to mobilizing funds to develop the road. So it is not true that the Chinese will be constructing. Of course, we'll be very happy if the Chinese come forward and say they are doing it for us, but that decision has not yet been taken.
It's going to be more local, or as I say, ECOWAS content based?
That is what we are working on now. We are working at the technical issues. First of all, what are the standards that have to be met? We are also looking at the institutional issues, the legal status of the road, the financial implications. Then we'll come to the transactions. How would that be transacted so that at the end of the day, we'll get what we have been mandated
I'll come
to
to you.
by the heads
Do
of
you
state.
trust to open your borders at Togo? Would you trust Togo to open your borders and Ivory Coast drive in and out as you wish?
Why not?
Because we don't trust each other as within the sub-region. We don't trust each other.
One of the reasons why we all came together as ECOWAS is to build this trust and enhance, trade and development and so on. Why wouldn't you want to trust?
It was 1975.
Exactly.
And we haven't opened the borders yet.
That's why we have today the technical, the experts here today to define all those details. We need to trust ourselves. We need to cooperate, and we need to engage ourselves as a sub-region. And again, from there we transition to the African, the broader African region. So I think that trusting ourselves is important because it's the key. It's a step towards economic integration. So I encourage that. And indeed, the President, His Excellency President Muhammad's government has committed himself, the President has committed himself to this project. And so we must begin trusting ourselves.
And if I can just add a little bit to what the Minister has said. In order to enhance that process further, we are not just constructing the roads, we are already engaged in constructing joint border posts. Joint border posts where all customs, immigration, all the issues that cause this suspicion will be addressed. Transit across borders, where all the goods, if they are carrying goods, where all this will be inspected jointly to the mutual satisfaction of both neighboring countries, where all these issues that cause this suspicion.
David, let me stay with the border issue before I move again. Anytime there's an election in Ghana, borders get closed, especially between Togo and Ghana, because Togolese and the Volta region, that's literally one people just divided by border lines. And so anytime there's an election, there's a call for that border to close so that people from Togo don't come in and then vote. So we have this voting issue. So if we open these borders up, then then the politicians then get very jittery come every 4 years when there's elections.
But those are special. Those are special issues. Borders are not closed for more than a week. These are temporary, very, very temporary.
So, I mean, if we have these roads, we are still going to keep the borders and shut them as and when?
No, of course. For legitimate transit across, I mean, you don't just move across borders. You have to travel with valid documents. With legitimate traffic, I'm sure there will be some provision for that. And as I said, even when it is closed, it is for very, very temporary. It's very, on a very temporary basis. So if there are concerns that there will be migration to cause distortions in the election process, I think that is very important. That definitely justifies temporary closure of the borders. And in fact, if there is a joint border post, the only legitimate transit between the two countries, it makes it easier rather than having so many bypasses in between countries.
Isaac, I'll move away from border income. Would railways have been better than the roads if we had constructed rails that link us better? No, start with rails before we move to roads. Would that have been better? Pollution, carrying of more people, and probably even faster?
First and first. And one of the things that probably are being discussed, are being considered going forward a long term, probably will be the railways. But for now, it's a road transport. So we are getting ourselves concerned with the road transport, and we'll consider the railway, and maybe also at the appropriate time. Why not? Rail, it's much cheaper. I'm told that experts will tell you it's much cheaper by rail
to run.
Yes, and so on. And so it could also be considered. But for now, we want to do the road transport.
And if I can add a bit more to that, just as in road transport, we are also engaged in railway development.
Okay.
We, like for the master plan for highways, we have a master plan which is part of the African continental master plan for the development of railways. Not only their development, but their interconnection, so that we have, a grid you can move across borders, standardization and so forth. But one problem with railway development is that it is very expensive. It is very expensive, from the studies right up to the development itself. It's very expensive. That notwithstanding, there are certain cases in which the rail transport definitely has a comparative advantage, and we are trying to exploit some of those special cases.
See, currently, none of the West African countries have got like a robust rail system. But then we are thinking of linking the rail systems. Is there any way we can encourage individual countries to at least have your railways up to maybe 60% or 70% or whatever the scale is, and then we think of linking?
I'm sure if any of our governments had the money, they will do that. But there are several other priorities. You said none of the countries has a robust railway system. You also said there is no interconnection. In fact, that is not true. Citra Rail in Abidjan runs from Abidjan as far as to Ouagadougou and links up with Africa Rail, which brings it to Niamey. These we are operating profitably for understandable reasons, because they serve countries who have no access to the sea. So it justifies such investment. That is the lifeblood of those countries. There is always traffic, and there is the port to support it. So where there is such a case, even in Ghana here, I'm sure, where you have a mine which depends on rail transport in order to ship.
I was coming to that, because our rail system is based on the colonial masters' routes, where let me just ship the things to the port. And we seem to just advance it, just change the rails to the port rather than bring it to the cities and, take it somewhere. We also follow the same colonial masters' rail map.
Well, colonial masters, those are based on some economic principles. As I said, investment in railways is very, very high. And except if you have a business case, it becomes difficult. We've been trying for several years to promote this so-called initiative, what do you call it, spatial development initiatives, wherein you can use the fact that the rail already has sufficient traffic to justify its construction. You can use it to serve other purposes. For example, commuting citizens and so forth. But wherever there is rail development, there has to be a business case. There has to be a minimum level of traffic it can carry before it can be viable.
This 1,000 kilometer road is running from Ghana through...
No, running from Abidjan through Ghana to Lagos.
Okay. And then hopefully to be, extended later. Now, again, I go back to 1975. There isn't even one commodity which we can trade between ourselves. And we always hear the story that Ghana has salt and Nigeria gets salt from Brazil. And we are ECOWAS. Is there a commodity that at least we can start with, that let us at least buy this commodity from here? When it runs out, we can bring some from abroad. Just one commodity so, we can move forward.
That is one objective of this project, along with ECOWAS, other ECOWAS projects, to promote intra-community trade. Perhaps some of the reasons, the main reason I can say for that matter, why there is not much business between our various communities, is that the obstacles are so much that it makes it easier to trade with our external partners rather than within ourselves. One main problem that this road, when completed, will solve is that it makes it easier for our citizens to move in between the countries, and that itself promotes intra-community trade. Not only promotes, it also encourages local production. Because if you know that you said there's no commodity, I know that Nigeria buys a lot of aluminium raws from here. The demand in Nigeria is so high that if it is easy to transit such commodities, that will encourage the producers in Ghana to produce more.
Let me take Isaac. How this construction should be managed? Ghanaians do their bit, Togolese do their bit, and then we meet at the border and then shake hands and then we continue.
No, I think it's a bulk project. So, and that's why the technical men are here. They will define the modalities and everything. Certainly the road will be awarded a contract, and depending upon the recommendations, it could either be in 2 tranches or 3 tranches, whatever it is. So then that will be done. So we don't see a situation where, Ghana is doing its own, and no. We are a body. Because if you allow each and every country to do theirs, that could be a problem. Because of course Nigeria could do it bit, then they're difficult for Ghana to do. So the experts will clarify, determine, and recommend those details for the ministers tomorrow to make serious decision on that for their president to give approval. So it's not going to be like that. It's a sub-regional project, and that will be done on a sub-regional basis.
So, I'll take a break here, and when I come back, I want to find out how it's going to be funded. Because I was thinking, well, if every country was going to do theirs, maybe every country funds their bit of the road. But if it's going to be a one track, how are we going to fund it? We'll come right after the break. Welcome back to the show, and we are talking about bridging the sub-regional region. That we're talking about, and we're doing it with a 1,025 kilometer road, which will go through Abidjan, Ghana, Togo, and to Nigeria. By all means, a good cause in terms of transporting goods and people, and boosting the but funding, and I'll start with you, Isaac. I mean, how is the funding going to be done? Obviously, 50% of the road runs through Ghana. So if it's funding, then Ghana has to find 50% of that cost. So then local capacity, then your contractors get more money.
Yeah, thank you very much. I want to make some things clear here. And I did say that we are working as a group, as a body, ECOWAS. And the technical men are here, the lawyers, the engineers, and all those. They are here since Monday. So they will be defining, they'll be identifying all those areas and barriers and modalities, and as well as giving all those bases and recommendations for funding. If it is for funding, you obviously will source external funding like ADB, World Bank, and Chinese Exim Bank, and all those. So this recommendation will be given by these experts. I'm not too sure as to how the determination will be in terms of each country's bit of it. But that, I think, will be left with the ministers and the president. They will define that. The most important thing is that let's define those details. Let's get funded money for the project to be constructed. And the determination as to how much each country will pay and all those will also come on board. I wouldn't want to go too much in specifics. Probably will come in there because Ghana stands to benefit. I normally don't want to talk about that because otherwise, it's Ghana. Ghana is taking about 50%. So Ghana leading that, We are working as a body, ECOWAS. These are the details. This road will link Abidjan to Lagos. It will enhance trade. It will enhance people movement. It will ensure that security is, maintained and all those. That is most important. So behind the scenes, or on the other hand, the details as to how much each country will pay will be determined. But it should not be a stumbling block because if you allow, for instance, each country to determine how much to pay from the start, probably wouldn't go anywhere.
David, let me ask you a very layman question. To the same
build up.
Yeah, it was the same thing, but it's a very, very layman question. So I want to ask that 15 member countries within ECOWAS. I mean, probably these 15 countries have about 30% of the world's resources deposited, on their lands. And yet still, collectively, leaders from all these countries will go cap in hand to either the World Bank, IMF, or China to say, come and help us build a road. Is there no way that between us we can raise money to build a 1,000-kilometer road?
As the minister said, that is what we are investigating right now. That is what we are working on in order to advise our heads of state. We are looking at several models. There are several financing models you can use. And in addition to experts from the member states, we also have potential financiers present in this meeting. The World Bank, the ADB is there. We have the Africa Finance Corporation, who might help us to package the project in such a way that we can easily get the financing to construct it. So,
but I still get the financing, which means we are going to be looking either outside of West Africa or probably even outside of Africa. But it's only 1,000 kilometers of road. And there's 15 countries. Between us, is there no modalities or no structures or lottery or, I don't know, something that generates?
Even in developed countries, this is not even in developed countries, look for financing to develop public goods. But this is a public good. You are talking about 15 countries building these roads. But this is only one priority for the governments. What about health? If you are building roads, what will the people in health do? What about agriculture, which is the basis for most of our...
David, then I say that if indeed we do a census and the road is not the priority, so the countries don't want to put money in it, then why don't we find out which is the priority for the 15 and put the money in it and start from there?
I'll definitely tell you that infrastructure will be a priority. Because there cannot be any progress. There cannot be any development in other sectors without the enabling infrastructure.
So then my first question stands, then it means we need to find the money local within ourselves to do it. And at least we can say we did it.
Well, the money we have, whatever money we get, we'll pay for it. The way we pay for it is one of the issues we are looking at. It could be a self-financing project.
Exactly.
I said we are looking at several models. That's why the AFC is here. So see how the transactions could be arranged so that, if possible, we can fund it internally. If possible. The ADB is here to see how they can come in. There is another financing company that is here who are looking for business to invest. It's a matter of investment. They are looking for investment. There are several investment. You mentioned the Chinese. These are investment opportunities they're looking at. We are saying how best we can develop the technical documentation, the financing documentation, so that we can sit on the table and discuss with our potential benefactors.
You are in government, so this applies to you more. Are we choosing the foreign investment too much as a first option. I mean, as soon as we find a speck of gold, boom, where's the foreigner to come and dig it? As soon as we see a tree, where's the foreigner to come and log it? We seem to choose the foreign investor first before we even consider local. Sometimes we don't even consider local.
None.
The AFC is a local, it's an indigenous.
The
other financing company I was talking about is also indigenous. All with the potential to manage that project.
Maybe on this particular case it is, but generally we don't look within ourselves for investment.
I have a challenge there. We have always looked within and without. If you had the capacity and the competence within to engage in or to invest, why not? If you check through our investment code and all those, it doesn't only restrict our investment on bigger projects to external bodies.
But all major investment belong outside. It doesn't belong to us.
Exactly. What happens is that, you see, externally others have the muscle, the financial capacity,
technical.
Exactly, the technical know and everything.
It's been 57 years. So then I ask, what stops us from building the muscle? They didn't just get the muscle. They also built it.
One of the things that we're doing now is some of these things that you're saying. In the sub-region coming together to embark upon economic motivating project like the roads, infrastructure, building it. You made mention of railways. When we are done with this major project, the experts and heads of state probably be considering railways. We already have a very good aviation system going on. So you start from somewhere. But I think that, for instance, Ghana, we have indigenes, we have Ghanaians who have the capacity to invest and to get into bigger projects in partnership with external bodies, either from Nigeria, either from Ivory Coast, Burkina Faso, and so on and so forth. Mind you, if you're talking about external bodies, I don't want you to think maybe it's from the Europes and all the Chinas. We have Nigerians, who have the financial capacity, and a lot of investment here in Ghana, in the oil industry, is all being done by Africans, and so on and so forth. So yes, if you say that we are 50 whatever years after independence and you should be doing things ourselves, I agree with that. But because we live in a global village, we are in a global environment, so you would have to consider within and without to move forward.
Within and without, but you realize that the audacity to which a foreign investor comes and the access that they get here, we don't get that 90% when we go there. There's no way an African or Ghanaian can get his pickaxe, a shovel, go to Guangzhou in China and say, well, I found gold here, I'm going to mine it. But the reverse is true for us, So that's what I'm looking about. It's not balanced.
Yeah, well, that is because, if we have the special qualities or the comparative advantage in some activity, definitely will dictate to them how things should be done. But
I'll stay with you.
Most of these services, as the minister said, they have the technological know-how, and we just have to work together in order to
David, I'll stay with that issue because last year the Japanese came here to show how to increase cocoa yields. Now that it's worrying. I mean, we should go to Japan to tell them, how to plant and grow cocoa. But they came to show us how to boost cocoa yields.
I'm sure the Japanese, they didn't develop that just on their own. It's international cooperation. Yeah. I remember as a student, I had somebody from Ghana, we're all as students, looking at cocoa virus, how to yield. Most of those achievements came from here. Most of the research findings came from here. This is all international cooperation.
See, I'm just trying to lead my question to say that we are not helping ourselves in terms of local capacity, and some of them are very, very basic. I'm not talking about going to the moon. I understand. Let's get the Chinese or the Americans to come and help. But planting of cocoa, I mean, if in 2012 the Japanese come and tell you do ABC to boost yield.
Let me come in here. I think that I need to be coming in here on this one. Ghana, I think the second largest producer of quality cocoa in the world. We have our research institutions here who come up with a lot of information for yield and all those. Because we are in a global village, Japanese, they eat or they drink cocoa or they use cocoa. Americans do. They are interested. And of course, because you have the technological know-how, and the financial capacity and everything to conduct researches, why wouldn't you want to accept somebody who is introducing or coming out with a research finding for you to help, and boost your industry, in the cocoa industry? Because we're in a global world. We are not sitting in our room alone. Whatever we do here, to be honest with you and with all due respect, a lot of all these gadgets don't come from here. You understand? You could have some of these gadgets being produced in Ghana here. If it is cheaper, you would want to go there and buy.
I'll go to David. 1,025 kilometers. What percentage would it add to the West African economy?
Definitely, it will boost trade, intra-community trade. Not only that, it will also boost productivity. Because, as I said earlier, where there are markets, established markets, guaranteed markets, there is always the incentive to produce. And this is just one element of the regional integration we are trying to deepen.
And David, I think communication also falls under your jurisdiction.
It does.
And that is one. I remember there's a time when if you need to call Togo, the call had to go to France and then connect back to Togo. Now, what are we doing? Can we call each other, and why is it so expensive?
In fact, when I leave here, I'll be going to Banjul to discuss some of those issues. But communications has improved tremendously. Not only voice communication, but broadband communication has improved tremendously because of our what we refer to as Intercom 2 project, which, like the master plan for highways, also aims at linking all the capitals of West Africa within Africa through broadband, multi-broadband.
How do we make sure we don't get lagged behind the communication age? I think within the sub-region, Ghana is 12% and we are the highest. And 12% is low,
12%
of internet connectivity. Ghana is hovering on 12%, and we are highest within, the West African community. We should be far ahead of this. How do we make sure that this generation does not miss the information age?
We make it cheaper in the first place, but the demand density does not just depend on availability and price. There are several other factors. We are only playing our part to make sure that the facilities, the services are available at affordable costs.
But then, till this day, I'm sure all within the West African region, if I import computers, there are levies and duties and everything on it. Should we make a deliberate effort to make sure, listen, computers, flood the market with it. Bring it in free, make sure it's accessible, because that is the only way out of poverty in this modern world. Should we do
that? That is one way out of poverty, and I'm not sure the Minister of Finance will agree with you. In fact, as I said, from here I'll be going to Banjul. That is one area we'll be looking at, taxation, particularly on incoming calls. For now, we have the highest termination costs, charges on calls. So that is one issue we are looking at. But we have to broaden our mind. Mm-hmm. The Minister of Finance also needs money, those taxes, in order to develop the backbone infrastructure as well as other things. So we have to look at it from a wider perspective. We have to take other issues into account.
I will come back to David, even though it doesn't fall within your jurisdiction. Maybe you can speak to it, because there's now 20% tax on handsets, that come in, and one would say that the smart handsets have access to internet. So if we did not put the tax on, so we brought it in, we could get more people connected to the internet via a cheaper device. However, if you put a 20% on, you will get your 20%, but it probably goes round that then not many people buy, so you're in that vicious circle. I don't know if you can...
Yeah, I can't talk to that so much, but I think that enough considerations were given to the fact that 20% tax be slapped on those products and so on. And it goes round and round. If the state gets the money is invested. If it gets to the individual, they all get invested. It depends upon the priority.
No, but the individual will use the phone, and then you take that indirect tax. Because once I bought the phone, I won't just look at it. And as I use it, you tax me. But give me the incentive to buy it, so I use it. But now, it's a disincentive for me to buy it, so then I don't even get to use it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm not in a position to talk much there, but my understanding is that it's a policy direction. At any particular point in time, any government will want to go or pursue a policy that will enhance the system. And I believe that decision to slap 20% on those communication staff is appropriate, because we need funds, we need money to develop, to run the economy, to develop the system. So it depends upon, that, for instance, agricultural products, for instance, if you brought in tractors and all those, they don't, attract reasonable tax that is required, because we want to encourage people in agriculture. We are an agricultural country.
Well, I'll go to David before I go. David, how do we make sure that ECOWAS is realized in our lifetime and that we don't die with our dreams of ECOWAS?
ECOWAS is already realized. ECOWAS, West Africa is the only region in Africa, in the world for that matter, where you can travel freely as a citizen, community citizen, without visas. That is one very big achievement. And coming from Sierra Leone, I said this a few days ago, if you say ECOWAS is not realized, I would say you are not right. Because
it's too slow to be realized. Because
it's relative.
I think we are an envy of other regions, even in infrastructure development. We are always taking. We are always in the lead. We have always been in the lead. The other regional organizations follow. I do not think so. Only that it will take time.
Have we set the yardstick too small, too short? So the least we do, in the eye of, in the land of the, blind, the one-eyed man becomes, the hero. Is that what we are doing? And that realistically, we should have been further than where we are.
It's relative.
Rather than patting ourselves on the back.
Sorry, it's very relative, because it depends upon where you're coming from. Some people think that we are younger states. Africa is so young. It took, about over 200 years for America to develop, 2,000 years for Europe. We are, the minimum is 30, between 25 and 30 on average. So I think that, we are on course. So long as we have the dedication of our heads of state, we were on course.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. ECOWAS dream has been realized. We are ahead of so many other states, and we are ahead. Others took 2,000 years to get to where they are, and we should get there very soon. My name is Anan Sanko. You're watching PM Express, and I was talking to David L.B. Kamara, Director Transport and Telecommunication for ECOWAS, and Isaac J. Mensah, Deputy Minister for Roads and Highways in Ghana. Thank you very much for watching.